Welcome back to the Joy of Vinyl. I'm Rick Coste. Remember this? 13 records or tapes for a buck. Well, I remember it well. In 1980, right around the time I was starting to build my record collection, I couldn't resist and I signed up without telling my parents. At the time, my only income was a weekly allowance, and that depended on me doing my chores, which didn't happen as often as it should have. So the promise of 13 records for a buck was simply too good to resist. 13 records back then would have cost me, I don't know, $100 or something. I don't recall what my allowance was, but I'm pretty sure I barely made $100 in a year. So, what happened to the Columbia Record and Tape Club? And how could they send millions of records for practically free to 13-year-olds around the country? Well, let's find out.
Columbia House began its life in 1955 as the Columbia Record Club. At the time, it was a division of CBS, and its sole purpose was mail-order music. In the 1970s, they became Columbia House, and you couldn't escape them. Their ads appeared in magazines, junk mail, and television.
Just 1 penny buys 1, 2, 3, keep going. 13 tapes or 13 records of your choice when you join the Columbia Record and Tape Club. The new TV...
1 penny. Imagine that. But how? How is that even possible? It's called negative option billing. And the way it works is simple. So simple that it's very hard to resist, especially when companies like Columbia House dangled a very large carrot in front of you. And in this case, the carrot was a box full of records for the cost of a stick of gum. And they were upfront about it, too. Once you signed up, you were committed to buying a number of records for the next, say, 3 years. In my case, back when I was 13, I committed to buying 9 records. In my mind, that was easy. I had until I was 16 to buy 9 records. I wouldn't have to worry about it for years. I was sure I'd have a real job by then, and that was for my future self to worry about. My 13-year-old self was, hey, show me the music. What I did have to worry about was the selection of the month. Here's where the negative option billing comes in. Every month, Columbia House would send a catalog of music to buy from. Included was a postcard indicating the selection of the month based on your preferred music genre. If you failed to send the card back within a couple weeks, they automatically sent you the selection. At 13, that postcard usually landed on the kitchen table and was completely forgotten about until the selection showed up along with a bill. That's how I ended up with Tom Petty's Southern Accents album in 1985. And if you're wondering why I was still a member in 1985 after signing up in 1980, well, it's because I joined again in 1984. Yeah, I was a sucker. This is how the club made its money and could afford to send out all that free music. For starters, because it only cost a penny, they could claim the records were free goods. They didn't have to pay royalties on free goods. On top of that, they got creative. Instead of purchasing the records they sold from record companies, they'd license the master tapes and press their own copies, and cheaply. The records pressed by the club were often packaged with outliner notes and lyric sheets. It was more often than not an inferior product, and it only cost them a couple bucks per record to make. They'd then turn around and sell them at a considerable markup. By getting teenagers like myself to commit to buying 9 more at regular prices, and knowing I'd forget to send the slip back every couple months, they'd easily make their money back on the free stuff. And to get around paying royalties on the music they pressed and sold, they sent the publishers a check for 75% of what was considered standard royalties at the time. And because those checks were cashed, they could claim the royalties were accepted, and they could continue pressing records under an implied license. If a record company complained, oh well, too bad, so sad. They could stop selling their records. And because Columbia House was huge by the mid-'80s and well into the '90s, record companies cashed the checks and pretty much kept their mouths shut. Now, every time a new format came out like CDs, it was game on. They could count on customers rebuying their old records in the new format. And with CDs, they were cheaper to make and to ship. The regular purchase selling price, that didn't change either. It was the wild, wild west, and Columbia House collected billions, as did their biggest competitor, BMG, which was the brainchild of RCA. Was it a scam? Well, no. They made no secret about what they offered and the terms. It was all there in the small print. Was it shady? Well, you could make that case, especially when you consider they were shipping free records with a promise to buy more to kids who didn't even have a driver's license, while collection notices filled their parents' mailbox. It got so bad that Ontario, Canada, considered it shady enough to make negative option billing illegal in 2005. The funny thing is, Columbia House wasn't immune to shady practices and scams against it. There are cases of subscribers using fake names and multiple post office boxes to get the free records or CDs, only to turn around and sell them at flea markets brand new and at discounted prices. So prolific were some of these scammers that one reportedly built Columbia House and BMG out of 26,000 CDs in the 90s. So where are they now? Well, they're gone. But they didn't go down without a fight. In 2005, BMG Direct Marketing bought Columbia House and continued business as BMG Columbia House. By 2015, Columbia House gave up the ghost and declared bankruptcy. It's now time to burn those collection notices.
Oh well, rest in peace, Columbia House. I might have hated receiving those monthly cards to mail back, but I sure loved it when an album I actually wanted showed up in the mail. You know, I still do all these years later whenever I order something from Discogs because my local shop doesn't have it. And before you go, did you know you can get vinyl record news delivered to your inbox daily for free? Just click here. And while you're clicking, you can subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button right over here as well. So thank you for doing that. Also, let me know your thoughts about this episode in the comments. And until next time, please take care of yourself and enjoy your records.